Hi everybody and welcome to my studio. My name is Lonna and I am an acrylic artist specializing in decorative painting, and I thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're going to grab your paints and your brushes and paint along with me today. Let's take a look at this really fun design that we're going to be painting today. We're going to be painting this. I've titled it Divine Tulips. I really wanted to help you learn how to make transparent glass and to give a blurred look to things that are underwater. Tulips are fairly easy to paint, so that's an extra little bonus in there. But this is a really super fun one to learn how to paint glass and underwater blurred effects. You can find the packet for this on my website, lonnalamb.com, and the packet includes written instructions, step-by-step color photos, and a line drawing, and it's available in paper packet form or electronic PDF download form. I'm on a 9x12 canvas panel. My background is just a blended mottled look, but a solid color would be beautiful for this particular design as well. I think black would be gorgeous for this one. And I am painting with Deco Art Americana acrylic paints. So if you're ready to grab your paints and supplies and paint this, let's get started. Alright, we're going to get started on this design here. And I've got a 9x12 canvas panel, Master's Touch from Hobby Lobby. And I like to, even though it's already gessoed, I like to go ahead and apply a coat of white paint. I'm going to lightly sand the canvas because that takes the texture on it down a little bit, and I will also sand it after I apply my white coat. So I'm going to apply with a damp sponge and let it dry, lightly sand, and then we'll come back and work on our background. Just a nice, thin, even coat. Use your damp artist sponge because it goes quickly. You can get a nice smooth coat on here and it will dry very quickly. So once this is dry, I'm going to very lightly sand it with a extremely soft sanding pad, or a brown paper bag will do the exact same thing that we need it to do here. Then we're going to come back and work on the background. Alright, we are dry here. I'm going to lightly sand it. Now you'll know you're dry if it's no longer cool to the touch. If the paint is not dry, your surface will still feel very cool. Okay, so I want to make a fun background. So I'm going to grab a large flat brush. This is a 1-inch flat. And I'm hoping to make a soft, subtle background, so I'm going to put my white out, quite a bit of it, because I'm going to need it. Of course, I'm using Deco Art Americana paints. I'm going to put some mint julep out. Or a soft green in the background. And I'm just using a foam plate here. A little bit darker green I could possibly use in just a few key places, and we'll be doing this a couple of times to build our layers to get them really nice. If you painted the daisies with me, I did this for this type of effect in the background of layering our paints and blending and making a beautiful background color. And then this is a new color, Joyful Pink. It's very bright. So I will use it sparingly. Probably will add a little bit of white to it. So these are the colors I'm shooting for the background. I'm probably going to make my flowers pink. Just seems to be a gimme. I don't know why. Alright, so I've got my brush woke up by filling it full of water, laying it on my paper towel each side to wick out the excess moisture. But I will probably need water as I go, so I will just dunk it right into my water basin and get extra water. Because I'm doing a large background and I'm using a large brush, normally I would say spritz your palette with some water and use that, but it's okay if we get a little dirty water for this and incorporate colors together. So I'm going to start out with laying in some white paint, and I want to move fairly quickly when I do this. I'm going to put white paint almost over the whole surface, just a nice layer of paint. I'm going to corner into that lighter green and begin adding that, and we will do this background a couple of times. I want nice, soft, subtle colors, so I'm blending it into that white so we can get some nice softness. Grab a little bit of white paint for over here and very gently blend. I'm going to pick up some more white paint and put some down here. I'm going to work wet into wet here. Let me grab a little bit of that darker green, and it's got a little tint of blue to it. Love that. And anytime you feel like it gets too dark, grab some white, slip, slap. I'm just very loosely adding some color in here. I'm going to grab a tiny bit of that pink, because I think that pink might just really take over if I got too much. And I'm going to put this in a few places. I do need some white paint in here. And blend a little bit of that pink out. And maybe just a touch up here, a little more white paint. And very gently blend. Now this is our first layer. The base coat of white I don't really count as a layer. So this is our first layer. I'm going to let it dry. I'm really liking the darker green and the pink in there and the white, so I may not use much of this lighter color when I come back. I'll just have to see how it dries. But I want to get this dry, and then we're going to come back and apply a second coat or a second layer of this mottled background. Alright, I am dry on my surface here, so I'm going to grab some more white. I'm actually going to put some more white out on my palette here. And of course I want to add my color on here, my white. It's not going to cover up what I got. I don't know what's going on with my computer. It's making all kinds of noises here. And a little bit of water, because I really want this to spread around a little bit easier. I'm going to go into that light green because I really did end up liking that light green once it dried. Try and make X's. That's going to help blend it out a little bit of that darker green, a little tiny bit of water, and a little bit of white. And we will just blend, blend, blend until we have a gorgeous background. White. I'll add a tiny little bit of pink up here. When I say tiny little bit, I am seriously meaning a tiny little bit. A little bit of water in my brush, so dip it into my water basin. Don't want too much water on your brush because these areas that are pretty wet we could start lifting, so we're going to do a little bit at a time here. I got way more paint on my palette than I actually need. A little bit of water, white paint, tiny bit of that darker green, and we'll go down here, more white, blend, 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 tiny little bit of pink up here, some white, a little bit more pink, a little tiny water in my brush, blend, blend, blend. Alright, I'm going to get a little water in my brush, wipe it off of my palette, grab some white. I work very, very quickly when I'm doing this, and I want you to do the same. You can just paint your background a solid color if you prefer. I've got a little bit of glare, so I'll have to lift it up here in a second and see how things are looking. That was a lot of pink in there. A wipe my brush off, grab a drop of water out of my dirty water basin. And go up here with a little bit of white. Alright, that's looking like a nice, soft, subtle background. I think I want just a tiny bit more pink over here in this area. So I'll grab the pink and the white because I don't want that pink to get too wild. That is a joyful pink. It is bright. Okay, so we got a nice little layering of a blue-green, a more soft muted green, and that pink blended in with our white. And I don't want to see any of my canvas looking areas, so if you see that, just very lightly blend that out. Grab a tiny bit of water. That's where you gotta be super careful. Tippy toe corner of that brush, the softest of blending right there. I don't want to start lifting. It's starting to dry, but I had a little bit of canvas that I didn't want to see there. And there we go. I'm going to leave it at that. Let it dry. If I feel like after it's dry this time I need to break up this green, I will do that. But our flowers and our vase are going in here, so I think that will all push to the background. You could certainly make this a bouquet effect in the background. That would so be gorgeous with this painting, but we're going to leave it at just doing that slip slap stuff and getting it done, letting it dry. Now we're ready, once it dries, to transfer on our pattern lines. Alright, so I've got my line drawing here, and I've got it on the surface how I want it to be. I'm going to cut my corners over here so I can tape it down. I generally draw my line drawings on with pencil, and then when I've completed it I go back and ink it all in so it is a complete line drawing, and anything that I may add or take away while I'm painting I can just add it or erase it off. So now I've got it laid on here the way that I want it. I think our background looks beautiful. And like I said, you can do just a solid color background. This would be beautiful with a black background, which is what I almost started to do. Okay. Lift one of these corners up here so I can slide my graphite paper up here. Okay. I'm going to make sure that I am lined up with my edges. Okay, we look good. Now we're just going to take our stylus and trace all of our lines on. When I get down here to the vase, I want to make sure that my lines are going to be straight. So I'm going to take my T-square, flip it over here, and get it right against this canvas panel that I'm painting on. And I can already see that my line is not straight. I want to make sure that it is straight as it comes down. So using the ruler will definitely help that. This side is not even close to being straight, so and then everything else should be pretty basic lines. Our stones, got one back here, and we'll just go on each line here and add the lines. We've got the stems that are kind of coming through here, so we want to make sure that our lines for that meet up. Our water line. here. And everything, it looks offset when it goes through the water. So that's why our stems don't line up through the water. Alright, we've got this part of the jar that we can see. Make sure our stem comes up all the way here. And then we're just going to trace all of the lines for our leaves and for our petals. It's a pretty easy process to transfer, especially onto a canvas panel or a piece of wood. If you are painting on a piece of wood, you want to be sure and prep that wood properly by applying some multi-purpose sealer to it and making sure that it is sealed well before you start applying your paint. Alright, one more flower, then we'll check and make sure we haven't forgotten anything. And we can't see where that leaf attaches because it's behind that petal there. And I probably will be painting my tulip pink. Pink and white tulip maybe, but you can paint your tulip any color, that you want. Alright, I'm going to lift up, make sure we got all of our lines. It looks like they're all pretty much on there, except for over here, something doesn't quite look right. Alright, so some of my lines here are not complete. This should come over here and touch the side of the glass here. It's this stone here. Okay, so we can erase any lines that we don't want or need, or we came out too far, or anything like that. And then down here at the bottom of the jar, I want to make sure that this is nice and curved right there. And remove any unwanted lines that you don't want. The graphite, you want to make sure you remove the graphite before you start painting, because once you start painting, it's going to be in there. Okay. Alright, I think we're looking pretty good here. So that really helped using the T-square to make sure that my vase lines were straight. And then this one, I think I'm just connecting the stem to it. So okay, erase any lines that go through the stems, because I mean, we'll paint over them, they won't show, but this will help you know where you're going here. So visually, actually it goes across it in the front, but back there in the back it goes behind it. Okay, we're looking good. So I think we're ready to grab our paints and start painting here. So we can remove our line drawing off of here. We shouldn't need it again. And we can put our graphite, our tape, and our T-square away, and our scissors, and we're going to grab our palette and paints and start painting. Alrighty, I've got my lines on here. Now, We don't want them to be super dark on here. Even though we're going to be painting this, I still want some lighter lines. I've got them dark so that you can see that how I transferred on my pattern, but I really don't want them to be this dark. So you can use a white plastic eraser or a kneaded eraser and just kind of erase them back a little bit so they're not quite as visible. Just take off that surface layer of graphite. And this will help a lot when you're going to paint, so you don't have to worry so much about trying to cover up dark lines on here. So we just want them lightly visible. So I think you'll still be able to see them pretty well. So any lines that you need to adjust, now would be the time to adjust them and then erase them back. I feel like my water line here is not quite right. It needs to be a little bit more of an ellipse. Erase through my stems there because that will be going behind it, and then a little bit more with the kneaded eraser I think I need to do. And then we're going to start doing some base coats here. Get everything ready to go. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's start with some base coats on our project. I needed an eraser over here. And we're going to start with, I think we'll go ahead and put the color on the tulips. I am going to be doing pink tulips, although I said I needed to pick a different color for my flowers because I seem to always tend to gravitate towards pink. But I'm going to base them in with this baby blush. It's a really soft pink color. A little bit darker than pink chiffon. Not quite as pink as baby pink. So it's a little more toned down, muted of a color. And let's grab a flat brush here. A little bit smaller one. Now we're going to start painting in all of our flowers. With a coat of this, on each petal, we'll do each petal individually. So I got pencil mark way up here and graphite out here. Knock that off. Eraser shavings away from your paint. We don't want that mixed in with our paint. It will cause us great sadness. Alright, so we're just going to base coat in with this really soft pink color. Each petal individually. No ridges, lumps, bumps, thick paint. We don't want thick paint. I'm taking my finger back and smoothing out those thicker areas. And your flower may develop a little bit differently than mine. Your petals might have more character and movement in them, which is completely fine. A little bit back here. And now we're just going to move on to the next flower. I'm going to get a smaller brush for this petal out here because it's got some curved places on it, and I want to make sure that I retain all of those curved edges. And it's much easier for you to see each petal when you're painting as you go to add your shading and highlighting and details on here if you paint them in all individually. Okay, I'm going to grab a smaller brush real quick. Now I'll go up and paint that one in. I was just using a 10 flat there. So I'm going to grab, I don't know what I'm going to grab here. That's too small. Alright, I'm grabbing a 3/8 inch angle brush. Wake it up in some water here. Get all those bristles woke up for you, or the brush won't work well for you. It will just want to grab that paint and hang on to it and not let go of it. So it's important to get your brush conditioned before you load it with paint. And I've got a techniques video that shows you how I do all that on my channel, so I'll try to remember to put that link for it if I can remember. You know how it happens when you start aging, you forget things. Alright. So that one has its first coat on. I'm just going to go ahead and stay with this brush. I think it will be big enough for me to fill in this flower petal here. That's like the back of that petal right there. Make sure you don't get any kind of ridges in your paint. If you do, take your finger, smooth them out. Smooth them towards the paint, not out towards the background. And if you don't get paint on your edges of your graphite lines, you can always come back with an eraser after you get your first coat on and erase all of your unwanted graphite lines. And I think I've gotten paint pretty much on all mine, so they'll be set in my project, which is fine. I erased them back quite a bit, so I'll be able to cover them with paint. I'm just grabbing tiny bits of paint at a time when I go over to my palette there. Not a lot of paint. So let me see if I can... I want you to be able to see that pink on there. So we will let that dry and apply a second coat on there. I'll show you how to do all the first coats, and then I will go off camera and do the second coats. Do some lighting adjusting there. Alrighty, okay, I'm going to paint my stems in with this really light green that we used in the background. It's mint julep green, a beautiful color. I'm going to grab a small round brush here, or a filbert, not a filbert, yeah, filbert brush. Filbert brush is rounded at the end. Not flat, and I may not see this too well. I might add a tiny little bit of eucalyptus in there so that we can see that stem a little bit better. So I'm just going to dip once into the eucalyptus and dip once into the mint julep. Couldn't think what color I was using, and we're going to paint these stems in. You should be able to see them now. It's just a 1-to-1 ratio. You can go with a small flat or a small round here. Going straight down to this water line. Speaking of water, let me get some on my palette. I'm going to spritz some water onto my palette. When I start doing detail stuff, I will be zooming in on different areas, but for now, just getting these base coats on, we're just going to stay a little bit back so that you can see the entire canvas and know where I'm going. Okay, let's go to the next one. Ideally, you should work from left to right if you're right-handed and not go the direction I'm going, 'cause I'm going to be laying my hand in some paint here. Do better than me. That's the rule. Paint along, do better. Do better. Alright, then this one is over here. Down straight here. And then one more. Mix, mix. That's a lot of paint there. Take some of that off because that was getting to be a pretty wide little stem there. And some of my lines on here for my stems I can see are not quite in the right place, so I'm going to paint my stem in where it needs to be, and then I'm going to go back and erase the lines that I do not need, because I don't think I traced them on very well. Mix 1 to 1. That rock. Alrighty. So that's got our stems already. We're looking like we're looking through a glass. Let's do our leaves, and I'm going to do them with the straight eucalyptus leaf. One coat, let it dry, repeat. The second coat won't have to be as heavy as the first coat because we're just filling in gaps where the first coat didn't quite get good coverage. Use a little bit of water in your paint if it's not going on nicely for you. Just some simple base coats here. I almost can't tell where my stem and my leaf separates there, so I have to be sure when I put my second layer on my stems that I try to get them just a little bit lighter. So I probably will do 2 mint julep and 1 of the eucalyptus leaf. I'm going to get all my base coats on, then I'm going to go in and erase any graphite lines that are left showing, except for my glass graphite lines, because, let's see, let's bring this leaf down here. We want it to connect that, and it's going to be behind that petal, so we won't see where it's actually connecting onto this. Smooth out here. Yeah, definitely going to have to lighten up those stems. on the second go around. All right, let's put some color on our stones here. And I'm going to grab some white and a little bit of black and make some light, really light gray stones. Your stones can actually be any color that you want them to be. If you want them to be more brown stones, you can do that. So I'm going to load my brush with my white and then grab just a tiny bit of that black and just very loosely and roughly put this paint on here. White, a little bit of black. I don't want these rocks to turn super dark. And this is where you can shape your rocks up if you want them to be a little bit better shape than what I've drawn in here. Alright, load with white, a little bit of black. I'm going to grab a little bit of water. Got one down here. And I've got a little paint on my stem, but that's okay. A little bit more white in there. Get some variation of color here. White in my brush. Right here so I can see that edge there. So we've got our rocks in. We're not really going to do anything with the jar or the water until we are ready to do those elements. I can see right here that my line is very, very crooked for the back of my glass. So I'll put that in there, erase that line. Because we want everything to be nice and straight. Okay. Alright, looking much better. Adjust any lines that you need to. I'm going to go off camera here and I just want to make sure my line is good there. I still felt like the bottom was looking weird. Just an ellipse, an ellipse, an ellipse, and they all should be pretty much the same. They should all pretty much be the same shape. So if they're not, do some adjusting, get them closer to the shape that they need to be. The ellipse should touch each side of the glass. Alright, taking this eraser and kind of taking some of that pencil line off. I think we're good to go. So I'm going to get my second coats on and come back and we'll start adding some detail. Alrighty, we have our 2 coats of each color on. Everything's really light and subtle right now. We'll be darkening everything up here in a little bit. I need to add a little bit of green over here. Alright, so we're going to start working on our tulips first. I want these to be a pink tulip. Your tulip can be purple, they can be blue, they can be orange. If you're going to change the color of the tulips, you can leave the greens in the background, but I suggest the color that you're going to use in the tulips, like I put the joyful pink in a few places, you would want to put that color in your background as you're painting in your background. So let's get some joyful pink out, and we're going to start adding some beautiful color in here. I think I'll get a bigger angle brush here, if I can find one that's not beat up. No, maybe I'll just go with a flat brush. Okay, I've got a 14 flat. Half-inch flat would be just fine. So let's get some water spritzed out here. I want to make sure we got water for our floating. We always use our clean water right over here on the palette. And my brush is woke up in the water, so it's damp and ready to go. So I'm going to load some of this pink on here, and I'm going to get a little bit of water because I want to keep it a little bit on the sheer side. I'd rather start out very, very light and soft and then build my layers than going too dark too quick. And you're like, whoa, what is that? So I'm going to put this at the base of my petal. And kind of bring it up into the tulip just with the edge of the brush. Your tulips can be any kind of tulips that you want them to be. They don't have to be like mine. Let's go over here to this one and just pull that up a little bit into that. A little bit of water. Blend the water and the paint. They need to meet and be happy. Put a little bit in here for some shading down in there. And let's do this other petal here. You want to go around this. Make sure you've got plenty of about equal amounts of paint and water in your brush. That way you can move that paint a little bit easier. I want to make sure we bring that petal forward so that it's on top. So we're making a beautiful tulip. There we go. Nice shape to that petal right there. Alright, grab some more water, a little bit of paint. Now in this particular flower on these two turned petals, I will definitely have to go to a smaller brush than what I have in my hand right here. So a little bit of this down here and pull some up. Try and zoom you in just a little bit without getting you off camera. Hopefully along the bottom of this one. And then I'm just going to take that edge that has the paint on it, my brush that has the paint on it, and pull that color up. separate all of these petals here with just a little bit of color. So we're getting that one developed in. I am going to go to a smaller brush here. I'll go down to this angle brush that I had out, this 3/8 angle brush. And if you can't see your lines where these flip up, this is the time when you want to transfer those lines on there. Erase them back a little bit so that you can just see them. But this is turned here. And then this one, let me look at my line drawing. It doesn't have to be exactly like my line drawing, but that one's kind of turned there. And we're going to darken down here at the bottom of this and pull some of this in. Maybe. I feel like I pulled a lot in. Okay, I want a little bit on this outer edge, so I'm tippy-toeing it. That means I'm up on just the very tippy 1 or 2 hairs corner of this brush. Okay. Put a little bit down here. On that, we're going to make that mostly a highlight on there. And let's go over to this other petal. And it's going to be dark down in here. And then down here on this lower edge, we'll put some of this. A little bit of water, blend it. Pull some stuff up here, and maybe a little bit here where it kind of dips right there on that petal. Alright, so we're just creating separation, and a little bit of form here is all we're doing. So let's go up to this big one here. I'm going to go back to my bigger brush for some of this, and some of it I'll go back to that angle brush. So again, on this one, if you cannot tell where your petals are, you want to draw them in. We're going to put some darkness down here in the center and kind of bring it up into our petals just a little bit. And then this petal is here. I'm just kind of tapping very lightly. I've got that water on my brush so I can gently blend it. And then we have we've got a little bit of a shaded area right through here. It's like the kind of bottom edge of that particular petal right there. So we'll add some here and pull a little bit of streaking up with the chisel edge of the brush. Don't have hardly any paint on my brush, and then this will be dark through here mostly. And then this one comes up here. And anything that we don't like, we can adjust as we add our highlights. So we don't have to worry too much about this first shading. Okay, you want to make sure you've got all the graphite lines that you don't want on here. Really, you should only have the graphite lines for the water and for the vase. Those are the only lines left that you should be able to see. So if you've still got some on here and you haven't covered them up with paint, go ahead and erase them back. I'll grab my bigger eraser because I feel like that one's taking me forever. So now that we've got a pretty good idea of where we're going, we don't need these lines. We want to take them off in case what we're painting next does not cover those lines. Okay, so that is our first little color onto our tulips. Okay, let's add a second layer of this pink color on here, Joyful Pink. I still want to keep it kind of transparent. So a nice transparent color here. And just bring it up onto the petal a little bit. More water. Just kind of at the bottom of each petal, not really taking it up the petals too awfully much. And we'll just put a little bit down in here. We'll be darkening all that down in there so we don't have to get too much in there. I'm gonna go over here to this big one and then come back down to this little one because I want to get a different brush for that little one. So that does not look like how I drew that petal. Well, that looks a little closer. And then I want to keep this a little bit more down here in the center. Bringing it up a little tiny bit right there. And right in there. Right in there. And then at the bottom here. Just using this sheer color. A little bit of water, a tiny bit of paint. Blend, blend, blend in your brush. Some lovely, luscious little pink stuff going on here. I'm going to go to a smaller brush to do the next layer on this smaller petal. Go to a flat brush or an angle brush, whatever you have handy. Light layers here. Nice sheer layers. So grab water, a little bit of paint, blend, 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 soften, soften, soften. The key to floating is having the right amount of moisture in your brush. Up on the tippy toe here. Don't want that to be super wide and fill in that whole thing there, so soft color. It's not coming out soft color. You've got too much paint in your brush. Alright, that is a beautiful layer for those tulips. want to make a few key darker places on these, so I'm going to take my Joyful Pink and a little bit of Leaf Green. We're going to darken that pink a little bit. And we're going to come in here and find some areas where we want a little bit darker color. Now you could grab a burgundy color of some kind if you want to add another paint to your palette list here, but we don't really need to do that because, you know, we just need a little bit of darkness in here. We're going to come in and do some highlighting. A little bit more water here. This is just down at the very, very bottom of this tulip. We're not taking it up into the tulip any. We're keeping it right down here at the very bottom of it. Okay, go around this petal here because it would have a little bit of a shadow. Don't get this mix overly dark. That's the pink with the leaf green. Just a tiny bit of leaf green because that leaf green can really take over and make it too dark. So let's create some little dark areas on this one. Along this edge. Right there is going to be a little bit darker. Keep it narrow, don't let it get crazy. Just a tiny scooch right there. Alright, let's do this petal right here because it's going to be dark right here. Where it's next to that one, a little bit along this edge, and then it's going to be dark right here, and come this way a little bit, and then we're going to do along the bottom here just a little bit. Remember, we're just doing small amounts here. We're not making this a dirty tulip, just some really small amounts. Go inside here. This will be the darkest down in here and then down right in there. Okay, we're creating some beautiful depth in this. Alright, let's mix a little more. The Joyful Pink and the leaf green. Just a little bit of leaf green. I can't stress enough how to not go crazy with that leaf green. So down here in the center of this flower is where we want it to be the darkest. We want it to be dark here. Here, this petal's kind of in the shadow a little bit. A little bit in here. And then we're going to have a little tiny bit along the bottom edge. Along this edge a little bit. Don't go crazy. Some nice, beautiful depth going on here. So now we're ready to highlight on these gorgeous tulips. Right, we're going to start highlighting on our flowers here. I'm going to load a filbert brush up with some white. And I'm going to start pulling some of this along the edge, and my brush as flat as I'm pulling from the top, but when I get down here, I want to chisel edge into my petal a little bit. And I'm not creating bright areas with this first layer of white. This will be pretty subtle. Will fade down in there quite a bit. Flat brush at the top, just give it a little flick. Load your brush, chisel edge, pull a few little streaks down into that. And then on these ones that are in the back, just tap a little bit along the edge. Okay, let's go over here to this big one. Flat brush, shape following, and then we're going to pull a few strokes down into that. This will be mostly flat brush here. Alrighty, flat brush. And then pull a few in there. Flat. This petal kind of curves around here. It's going to have a little bit of a highlighted edge right there. And that's about all it's going to get. Then on this one, flat. I'm just barely letting the brush go along that edge. Now I'm chisel edging, pulling a little bit of that down into, and it needs to shape follow, so we don't want flat lines right here. It needs to shape follow that. That's a little bit better. Don't fill the whole petal in. We're just pulling a few little strokes in there. Got to pass my edge there, so that's looking pretty good. Alright, let's go to this one. Flat edge. And then chisel edge. I like to get some fresh paint when I'm doing the chisel edge so that I can have nice sharp lines when I'm pulling down into that petal. Such a pretty tulip. And then a little bit out here on the edge of this one. And I'm using a 6 filbert, but you could definitely go to a 4. I'm going to stay up on the very tip here. And just a little bit on that edge, a little tiny bit. You could go to a little liner brush here. But honestly, if you can learn to manipulate these bigger brushes, then you will be so much more successful in your painting. Alright, let's go along this edge. And right out here, bring some of that into the center. Just a little scrubby-dubby. I'm going to go along this edge right here. Okay, that's looking pretty good for our first highlight on there. Now white is going to fade down in there. It just does. So you may have to do this 3 or 4 times to get those really bright whites that you want on there. And that's fine. Sometimes it takes me that many times to do it, but you just want to keep applying your layers of white until you've got it as bright as you want it. So I'm going to continue with my next layer of white here. Load my brush, and then I'm going to go back to this one. This was the first one that I did. these edges a little bit, and then that one's kind of my brightest little line going down in there, so I want to repeat on that one for sure. And don't fill your petal up, okay? A little bit out here. I'm gonna move to this one. And I may not hit all the same places on the edge that I did before, but it's going to be fine. That's going to give it a little bit more depth. I've still got the center of this one over here to do. If you feel like you are covering up too much of your pink, then just go grab your pink and add it in there. Here and here. I'm really just lightly skimming some paint on here. Okay. And do it as many times as you feel that it needs it. So I've done it twice. I'm going to leave it at 2 times for now. I may want to come back and do it a 3rd time, or grab an angle brush and create some really bold, crisp color at the top of my petals. But I want to work on the center of this one over here. Okay, let's add some little stamens in here. I'm going to start with the leaf green and just pull some of these. Let me add a little water to that so it will flow. I'm just using a round brush and number 1, and I'm just going to pull some of these coming out of the center. Don't make them all the same height, kind of vary them. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit of that joyful pink. You could also use the eucalyptus leaf at this point. I'm going to mix this, tap this at the base just a little bit, and rinse off. I'm going to grab some eucalyptus leaf, maybe some mint julep. I originally was going to do the eucalyptus leaf, but I think maybe the mint julep might be a little better. I don't know. Put them both out, and then I want some bright yellow so we can finish these off in here. So I'm just wanting to tap onto the tops of these. So let's add some of the eucalyptus leaf, just a couple of little dots. Okay, and I'm going to wipe my brush off, and maybe a little bit of the mint julep just here and there. This just help create a little bit another layer there. And then the bright yellow, we are just continuing to add some layers in here. And now just some white on just a few of them. So that is the centers, but we need to shade down in here. We want all of our little dots to get dry. I'm going to mix some leaf green and some joyful pink, that dark color. looks a little green for me, so I'm gonna a little more pink in there. Pink's gonna turn it a little bit more of a brownish color. Now make sure that your dots are dry. And I just want to put this at the base down here. I don't want to bring it up too far. Just kind of wiggle it and scoot some in there. Kind of set that center really down into that petal. I think I'm going to take some white and to make sure this edge is a nice crisp edge there. And then do this on your petals if you want to create a little bit more of a highlight on them. If you need to define an edge a little bit more, then this is going to be your opportunity to get that done, because when we're done with this, then we're done with the tulips. I need some water. Just creating some nice edges here. Alright, this last flower, and then this should finish up the upper parts of the tulips until we get the leaves and stems done. Then we can come back and kind of figure if we want to do any more. And we're just using straight white. I need a little bit of pink back in here. I feel like this petal got too dirty, so let's brighten that up a little bit. This again is where if you feel like any of your shadow areas got too dark, let's go back in with a little bit of this bright pink, just a little wash of it. Again, you can bring some of this up into your petals. We're keeping this sheer, okay? Don't let it get crazy. I just feel like some of these shaded areas could use a little bit of brightening of this joyful pink. We've still got our shadow color there, but we just need a little bit of brightness here. Pull a little bit of this into my flowers there, and a little bit of white. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good here. Alrighty, that looks good. Alright, I think we're ready to move on to our stems and leaves. I think we'll work on the leaves first, and then we will go to the stems. Alright, let's start shading on the leaves. We're going to start with the leaf green, which won't have a whole lot of value change yet, but enough that we should be able to see it. And we're going to go next to that. Oops. So hot here today. Water's drying up super fast. I'll go next to this tulip here. Let's create a center vein. Gonna go out here on this edge a little bit. Okay, we're gonna separate these two here. We're going to create the fold in this leaf. And grab my paintbrush properly. Let's create a center vein. And I'm going to shade along this edge over here. Shape your leaf nicely down here, and we'll put a little bit down here. A little bit more paint. Alright, then this other one that is behind. Tulip, behind the stem, behind this tulip. Around this one. This is where you can shape your petals nicely if you kind of mess them up. Let's create a center vein. We won't see a whole lot of center vein in this one. Okay, so there is our first layer on our leaves. Looking pretty good. The leaves will go pretty fast, so you don't have to do a whole lot to them. All right, let's deepen the shading on these leaves, and I've got some fresh leaf green out here and a little tiny bit of black. Just kind of sneak up on making that a dark green. Tiny bit of black at a time. Making it close to an evergreen color, maybe. Alright, let's create our dark areas here on our leaves. Maybe a little bit more leaf green in there, not quite so dark. center petal here. A little water. Go around this one. Just a thin little float there. A little bit here. Put a little bit more of this down the center vein just to bring it a little bit more forward. Okay, that looks pretty good. So again, our leaf green and a little bit of black. Sneak up on that. We'll go here. Maybe a tiny bit more black in there because this is going to be a really dark area here. Tiny bits of black at a time. Don't go crazy. You can always add a little bit more leaf green to it if it gets a little too dark. Don't ever feel like you have to wash your brush out if you get your paint color a little bit not quite the color that you want. Just go wipe your brush off, grab a few drops of water and remix it right there. Because you don't really need to clean your brush every time. Just you know, wipe off what you've got and go from there. Paint too far over on my brush there. Let's do this one. I'm going to have to mix a little bit more. Tiny bit more. Ooh, that's a lot of black. Wipe that out. Grab a little more of the green. I'd rather come back and add a little bit more of the dark color than to get it way too dark to begin with. And a little bit along that vein and that vein. And that looks pretty good. Alright, let's add some highlights on here. Alright, I've got some citron green. I'm going to bring that out onto my palette. And it's very, very bright color. I'm going to take some of my eucalyptus leaf and put some fresh out here of that. Grab my brush here. And I'm going to mix these two. I'm going to do a 1-to-1 mix and see if that's going to be a nice bright color. Looks pretty bright. Let's give it a shot. Now it needs to be a little bit brighter, so let's add another green in there. Another of that citron green, and we're going to create this bright. Maybe I just need to go straight citron because that looks a little chalky looking. I don't like that. So let's take that off and try that with just the citron. This is a pretty transparent color, so it will probably fade in here. I want all the way up to the tip on this, right next to that center line. I'm going to put some out here on this edge. Right there's the really high spot there. I can streak a little bit of it down the center on this right side, but we definitely want right through here to be bright. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's go to this one and create our highlight on here. Chisel edge and pulling it back, and now my brush is more flat as I go through here. We want some right next to our center vein here, and then we've got a place up here that needs a highlight right through there, maybe a little bit right through there, and right through here. I definitely need to shade that edge right there, I think. So I'm going to grab my black and leaf green here. Okay, that looks better. Alright, let's go up to this other leaf. So this is just the citron green. Nice bright leaves here on this edge. And then we'll go on this edge and next to the center vein. Just a little bit. That looks good. Okay, so we're going to repeat that highlight, and at this point you can do another layer of citron, or you can add a little bit of the yellow into it. I feel like I need to add some little dots of yellow into the center there. I feel like when I went back with some of my shading, I kind of lost that brightness in there. That's a little bit better. I don't know that tulips have that much in the center of them, but you know, I'm going to go with it. That's creative license right there. So I'm going to take the yellow and the green. Actually, I need to wash my brush first. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to take my yellow, which is bright yellow and citron green, both a transparent color. So I'll just mix both together. It's going to make that green just a tiny bit brighter, and we'll just put this in a few places. Yellow and citron. Just a couple of places. Don't put it everywhere. You can pick and choose where you want it to go, or you can follow exactly like I'm doing. Green, and my yellow is starting to get a little bit dry. I think I got enough to get this last leaf done here, so I'm going to put some along this edge. This one won't need a whole lot because it's not, you're not seeing a bunch of this one. And then a little bit right there. And I think I need to put a little bit by the center vein here. Tiny bit there. I can get it on the tip of my brush, so I can just put a tiny bit in there. Okay, I think those leaves look great. Again, you can go back with just straight yellow after you do the yellow-green mix if you want some even brighter places on them. But I think they're looking pretty good. Right, let's go to our stems. And I think we're going to start our shading with eucalyptus leaf. Let's see how this shows up. I may need to mix some leaf green in with it. So I'm just on the very toe of this angle brush, dragging it down. I'm going to do the upper parts of the stems first. So I guess I'm going to create my highlight coming from the right side, because I originally, actually I'm not, because the way the leaves are, the highlight is coming from the left. So I'm going to go remove this that I just put on there. And we are going to put this color on the other side. So let me flip this around, and we'll do it on the correct side, because I'd like for all of my highlights to kind of go together. So we're going to go along this would be the right side if it was right side up. Right next to your flower there, we'll put some of that color. Right side, but if it's upside down, it will be your left side. And I'm really up on the toe of this brush, this 3/8 inch angle. Start off your leaves. Go right up next to your flower, and actually we're going to pull a little bit mix of eucalyptus leaf and a tiny bit of leaf green up onto our tulips. Maybe a little bit more leaf green, because I want that to be a little bit darker. And then this one we can't really see, so we're not going to worry too much about that one. Now, you can go along both edges if you feel comfortable doing that. Then go for it. I want my highlight to be on that side, so I'm just going to take my leaf green and mix a little bit of that in with my eucalyptus leaf. I'm going to go over that shading again. So we're shading on the right side, and only the stems that are out of the water. The ones in the water we're going to do here in a minute. But we're going to go back over that shading edge and darken that. This time I've got an equal mix of eucalyptus leaf and leaf green. Take it right up to your flower. And I am literally staying on the tippy toe of this brush. Wipe out, because when my paint starts drying in my brush, it won't flow very nicely. I need to wipe my brush out so I can get some nice fresh wet paint to work with. Alright, one more time here. Stay off of your other leaf and your petal, flower petal there. So I think I'll come back onto the base here with a little bit more of this green. just kind of tap that onto the flower. A little bit in here. And that one won't get any, so you don't have to worry about that one. Okay. That's looking pretty good. So, blend that out just a little bit. No sudden starts or stops there. Okay, they are looking really good. I definitely want to darken, especially right here next to this one. So let's go with some straight leaf green here. I don't know if I'm going to need to add some pink or some black to it here. So I think I'll add a little bit of my pink. I don't want this to get too dark. I do want it to be a little darker. So especially up underneath here. So I'm just kind of tapping some right there into that dark shadowy area. And we want some going around this leaf here. And just almost lining that edge. Stay on the stem would be good. Alright, let me mix a little more of that. Oh, no, I don't want black. I want the pink. Mix that dark green color. A little bit along that edge. Just kind of hit and miss. It doesn't have to fill it in. And we'll go right here next to that. Next to that right there, that petal. So we're creating this beautiful little shadow from that petal. I'm going to put a little bit of this down here where it meets the water on all of these. Alright, more water on my palette. And we'll finish the shading on the others with this leaf green and joyful pink mix. Water. Okay, so let's go up here and do a little bit into this one. A little bit of shading there. And then just tippy toe, hit and miss right along that edge. Okay. Let's go underneath this one. It's going to have some nice shadow. And around this petal right here. And underneath. Grab some water, mix a little bit more because I'm mixing such small amounts. I go through it pretty quickly. A little hit and miss along the right edge. Those stems are looking pretty good. The upper stems are looking really, really good. Okay, let's highlight the upper stems and then we're going to work on the stems in the water because they're going to be a little bit different than the upper parts of the stems. Alright, let's take our first highlight. I'm going to mix 3 of the citron and 1 eucalyptus leaf. And I'm just going to drag this along the center of our stem here, trying to stay out of my shadow area. I'm on the chisel edge of a filbert brush, keeping it more on the left side of the stem. I don't want to cover up my shadow or anything like that. And I'm going to wipe my brush off, and I think I'm going to go with the citron and yellow mix next. So let me put some fresh citron out here and some fresh yellow because they're all starting to get kind of dried up. It's our bright yellow. You could use cad yellow if you don't have bright yellow. It's also a transparent bright yellow. So let's mix 1 to 1. Load the brush, offload a lot of it onto our paper towel. just by wiping each side of the brush off because I had a lot loaded in here. And then we're just going to drag a little bit of this down our stems. Hit and miss, not the entire thing. And then I think we can do a final one maybe with just yellow. You could add a little bit of white on here as well, which I might do. I might add a little bit so I can make the highlight different than the one that's on the leaves. So I'm going to mix a little bit of white in with my yellow, and we'll just do a little bit of bright highlight. So we use the citron and the yellow mix, and then yellow and white on here mixed together. And you can always come back with that just white if you want and add a bold little highlight on there, but I think that's going to be pretty good for our tulips. All right, let's work on the stems inside the water. Now, the stems inside the water are going to be a little bit blurry. So we took our eucalyptus leaf for our first shading. I'm going to wipe some of that off because I just want to blur the edges of my stems here by just kind of wiggling that shadow. I might go down here. This is just that eucalyptus leaf. Blur your edges. Still have those rocks to do. Let's put some of this next to our rocks here. Separate these a little bit. Okay, we're getting a little bit of blur there, which is good. I'm going to wipe my brush off and grab some leaf green in that mix there. Actually, we did leaf green and the pink. I just stuck my hand in the yellow. So it's leaf green and the joyful pink mixed together. So grab some pink, some water, and some leaf green. Make that dark green color, pink, and we're going to blur this a little bit too. Okay, let me get more water here. We don't want to blur it way out there. You notice I'm putting it on the edge and letting it go into the water a little bit, so I'm not like I would normally come down this edge. So I'm doing it the opposite. And down here we probably will have to come back and redo that because once we get those rocks in there. Okay, all right, let's add some highlight on here, and for our highlight we did the citron green and bright yellow mixed together. Citron green and bright yellow. And again, we're going to be blurring this a little bit. where we can anyways. We don't want our water to look yellow. I'm going to take that leaf green and pink mix and do along this water edge here. Next to the rocks, because that's where it's going to be the darkest. And then if you need to add a little bit more, like right here, this one goes underneath that one, so we really want it to be defined there a little bit. Okay, this one needs a little bit more blurring out stuff. All right, let's add our bright little highlight on the stem. We're going to do it on the stem this time. We're not going to blur it outside the water edge. So our highlight was the citron and bright yellow, which we put on there already. So I'm going to do I'm actually going to do it again. Mix those two and just put a little bit on here. And then we're going to do the yellow and white. So yellow and white. And put a little bit of this on here. Okay, so that makes those stems pop a little bit. That looks pretty good, but blurring it out really makes it look like it's underneath the water a little bit. And if you feel like you get too much blurring out over here, you know, you can just, as soon as I find where I put it, take your little eraser with a little water and soften that back a little bit. I happen to think that looked pretty good, so I'm going to leave it and not worry too much about that. Okay, so that finishes the stems. The only difference we did with the stems in the water as opposed to up here is when we float it along this side, instead of turning it upside down and putting the edge of the brush there and letting it soften into the stem, we put it on the outside edge and let it soften into the water. So it just made this little blurring effect on there, okay? All right, so let's get ready to work on our rocks now. Okay, I'm coming back with a little bit of that red and green, leaf green mix, and putting a little bit, a couple places on a stem here and there, on a leaf here and there, and just bringing some of that pink color more around. And on the green, you might have to repeat it a couple of times so that you can actually see the color, but I'll put a little bit down here in the water as well. We'll have to tint the water a little bit green, a little bit pink, but it's looking really good. All right, stones are next. So let's work on those stones. We're going to need some black and white out. You can put some of the greens on your stones, some of the pink on the stones. I actually might do a little bit of pink on my stones. Put some fresh pink out. Or at least that green-pink mix. You can put some yellow on your stones. But the first thing we want to do is separate them. So we're going to do that with a float of dark gray or medium gray, depends on what color your your rocks are. If they're a darker gray, you may have to go with a black. But let's separate them with just a little bit of color so we can tell where they all are. This is going to help us visually a lot. And I'm not doing this in, you know, a perfect way, so a bit along that edge there. And, you know, your rocks can truly be whatever color, you know, you desire them to be. Let's see. I actually think this rock is behind this one. At least I'm going to make it that way. So we'll just create a little shadow over there. And then this one is behind this one and this one. A little water in my brush. Water keeps drying up on my palette so quickly. Don't go outside your glass there, which is what I just did. We don't want that. This one I'm going to put a little bit of shading there and a little bit of shading here. The rest of it's going to be pretty highlighted. So white and black. Let's go here. Now we'll put a little bit of here on this rock. Maybe bring some different color up into that rock. We're going to be blurring those rocks out a little bit here in a minute with our gray color that we created them with. Okay. I might bring that rock over here a little bit more when I paint the highlight on it. Okay, that looks pretty cool in there. I'm liking that. So now if you want to add some other colors onto your rocks, which I think I'm going to add a little bit of pink onto mine. Maybe a little bit of green too, I haven't decided, but definitely some pink on there. Then we'll start highlighting on them. So let me grab some of my Joyful Pink. First, let me put some more water on my palette. Alright, some Joyful Pink here. And I'm just going to create a lighter color on my brush. I don't have as much water as I normally have when I'm just creating a wash, because I want this to be a little bit brighter as I lay it onto my rocks, and the more water I have, the more washed out the color will be. So there's 3 of them with some pink on there. I might darken it just a little bit. Not the whole area that I put on there, but just a little bit more in a couple places. Okay, we want to darken our rocks in the darkest areas. First I'm going to mix a little bit of some of that other gray we just used. I need to put a little bit of it right there. Okay, I'm just going to wipe that off because we're going to go into pretty much straight black. So just a little bit of this on your brush, because a little bit of this goes a long way. So get some water in your brush and mix it to soften it. And we're going to put this in our dark areas, our really dark areas, which won't be everywhere. So it won't go in all the places that you shaded before. It will just go in a few. Grab some water, work that into my brush so it's a nice soft color. Okay, looking good. So darkest areas, just right here. These little V's are always going to be the darkest. You know, any place where you have like a V shape, those will always be the darkest. A little bit darker here next to the glass. Okay, so that was with just straight black. Bring a little bit of this up onto this rock. This really big one here. I want it to be a little bit of a more of a gray rock, darker gray. So I'm just taking what water is left in my brush. Make a little bit more dark right here. Needs to be darker right here. This is a dark area right here because that's a V and it just needs to be dark. This is a little bit of a triangle here. So if you need to go back with your black, you can do that. I want a little bit of this to come over that stem there. And right here, want to completely cover up the stem, but we can create a little bit of shadow stuff with this black. Just a little bit. Okay. Go back into those V's if you need to, and darken. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Almost looking like olives. So funny. And let's add some highlights on here with some white. And again, I don't want this to be perfect. We're going to come in and blur this out here in a minute. Or we're just going to create some highlight on here with white. Just kind of pity pat and play with it on around the rock, so that you're not creating just a solid white area. Make some areas brighter than others. And again, you can come in with your darker grays and add some of those in. That was with the, the white. We very choppily added some white in there. I'm going to go back in with some of this darker gray and kind of choppily add some of this in there. Create some texture on the rocks a little bit. And now we're going to go in with that light gray value and see if we can blur out some of this. Oh, that's too dark. See if we can blur out our rocks a little bit. These have a lot more white in them than I thought they had in them. So we're just going on the outside edge, but keeping our brush on the outside of the object instead of normally we would have it on the inside. And we're just going to blur this a little bit. Blur this a little bit. Blur, blur, blur. This is going to make them look like they're under the water. Super cool how that effect is so easy to do. Down here. Super, super cool. And you can go over it as many times as you need to really kind of blur that out. Oh, I think that is so cool looking. So super cool looking. So we've just got our water left to do, and then our look of water. And then we're going to create some shadow under this and some cast shadow on the wall. I think will look really nice with this one. So that is the plan. Okay, let's do the water and then we'll do the glass. So for the water, we're going to go where we've drawn that water line. And I'm going to take some white and a little teeny tiny bit of black and mix that and make a really light gray. A little bit of water. We're going to go right on this line and pull down. Make sure you're not going on the stems in the back. We're going to do the same thing on the front. Just pull down with some of this mix. Let's see if I can zoom you in just a little bit and keep you on camera here. White, a little bit of water, teeny tiny bit of black. Touch the line and pull down. Okay, I'm going to grab more white and we're going to do the same thing again with just white and pull some streaks down. I really want that edge where the water is at to be more bright. This also helps blur out those stems a little bit. Remember, if you get water on that chalk line that we've drawn in there, you got to cover it up. Or not water, but paint. And I know I've gotten paint on mine already, so I'm going to go back in here and really cover up that chalk line because I don't want to see that. So I'm just going to flat brush here, just the very tippy edge of the brush, and then pull down some highlights there. That might be a little bit too much right there. So I think I'll remove that. Okay, let's do a little bit back here. This is just white. You still have a little bit of gray in yours, you might want to take it out so we get that little bit crisper white back here. Okay, so we've kind of developed our water line there. We want to put some of this down at the bottom as well to create a little bit of water down here. So I'm going to take that white, and back here where the water line is here, I'm going to tap a little bit along that water line. Or actually that's the back edge of the glass. Go the other direction a little bit, just a little bit. Oh, I'll just fling my thing clear off my roller. So we've got a little bit of lightness going on down there. I think I want to put a little bit of a shadow down there, so I'm going to take some black and some white and mix a little gray, and we're going to create a little bit of shadowy stuff down in here. Okay, just a little bit of a shadow in the bottom because we're going to add some white paint here in a minute and remove all that, or fix all that. Let's see if I can erase any of this graphite at all. I still want some brighter white on there. Okay, I'm going to have to take some of that off because I don't like it being a solid line across there. I want it to be broke up. So I'm going to dampen and erase some of that. It's not quite so in your face. I don't want it to look like it's snow along there. Don't want that to be quite so solid. A little bit of water. I'm going to remove some of that. That looks much better. Just a little random kind of hit that for, you know, some water. We can take some of this and drag it on here and make that look a little blurred out as well to look like water back in there. Create some little bubbles in there. All of that will help create that illusion of water inside the cup. You could add a little bit of blue tint to it, but we don't have blue anywhere in our project, so I don't really want to add that in. So now we have to create the glass itself so that our water doesn't look like it's just kind of floating there all by itself. So I'm going to grab my angle brush. Alright, I've got my angle brush and I'm going to side load somewhere on this palette. I want it to be a little sheer, so I've got quite a bit of water in my brush, maybe a little bit too much. I'd rather start out light and work my way up. So we're going to go down the glass all the way with this sheer float of white. Keep your sides straight. Go all the way down to the bottom. We're going to go across the top here. This is a very sheer color of white. Okay, let's go down the other edge. It can be just a tiny bit darker on this edge. And this is the shadow side. Still want it to appear light. We want to make sure all of our rocks are actually behind the glass. And we're going to come up. And let's see, this is going to go across. That leaf is going to be behind the glass. If that doesn't look too weird. Yeah, that looks a little weird. I made my leaf a little too big right there, because it needed to come up and out of the glass. So I am going to fix that with my white and my eucalyptus leaf. Those look like the colors that are in the background there. Going to reshape this leaf. A little eucalyptus. Ooh, maybe it's leaf green. I might be able to erase that. I mean, it hasn't had a time to actually set in there. I think I'm gonna have to erase that. So let's show you right here how to do this. I might go all the way down to my canvas, but that's okay because this hasn't had time to cure on here yet. It hasn't been on the canvas long enough. And so I'm going to erase this part of the leaf. Do my background through here. You always have to be careful that you don't go through all your layers of paint and get to the bottom of the canvas, which I might here, I'm not sure, but this is easy to fix. You really just need to take off enough paint to redo the background right here. See, I got all the way down to the canvas there. I'm going to take this paint off that I just put on because I don't like that. Alright, this was white with a little bit of eucalyptus leaf. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in. It's going to take me a couple of layers to cover that up. Up my stem there. So a little bit more eucalyptus leaf, I think. And just as long as we're using the same colors that we used in the background to begin with. So I'm going to start out with a little bit darker, very loosely, lightly, pity pat. Wipe my brush off and kind of work that out. And then I'm going to come back with some white and put some white on there. I'm going to have to, well, I can still see my line, so I should be okay. While that's drying, I'm going to go back over here, grab some water and a little bit more white over here. And this is my highlight side over here, so I'm going to bring a little bit more of that white in here across my glass, and to keep that side a little bit brighter. It definitely needs more. White is, you know, just the hardest color I think to work with. It, unless you're mixing it with something to make another color opaque, white just fades down in. You just think it would be the most opaque color there is, but oops, not on that stem. Alright, just creating a little bit of highlight. This is all white. Okay. Let me get some fresh white out. That paint looks, it's almost dry, not quite. I don't want to lift it, but I want to start mixing a little bit here. It just needs to be lighter. Okay, we're getting some good mixing here. Alright, that's looking pretty good covered up. I might have to come back when it dries and add another little layer on there. A little bit more white. More white out here. Give it a little bit more of a transition. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. I think I'm going to have to come back and do that side again while it's drying. I just, you know, I make mistakes just like everybody else. So just, you know, if you make a mistake, don't freak out and think the whole thing is ruined, because it's not. So we're going to go down here and try and create the look of some thick glass here. So this is just straight white on a round brush. And I don't want it to be super opaque, but I want it to give that look of thick glass here. go along the bottom as well. So we can kind of see it's a little bit thicker there. Okay. That line doesn't look very straight. Okay, again, I don't want that to be a solid line across there, so I'm going to remove some of that. And it can be a little bit darker back here. Create that edge. Okay, let's go up the other side with our white. Grab a little bit of water. Make sure you're staying straight. That is the most important thing, is to make sure you are following that line that you put on there. Alright, I don't feel like I'm very straight here. Right through here. Okay, I want more white on this side because it's the bright side. Oops, don't go outside your lines. Let's make it a little bit wider down here. And okay, so all this is behind the glass. We want it to look like it's behind the glass and not in front of it, so let's create some shine lines here. Now you're going to think we're covering up all of our beautiful stems, but we're not. We're just putting a little bit on there. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to do a little bit more white and some of that green right here. Just a very light scrubbing here. And I think that will be okay on the background there. Might Scoot in just a little bit of pink in there. Just to kind of mix that in. Alright, let's put some of this pink on the glass. Let me get some water in my brush here. Get the white out of my brush. My water is so dirty, I'm not sure I'm getting my brush clean at all. Let's grab some pink. I just want to create a little bit of a wash of this color and put it on our glass a little bit in a couple of places, maybe reflecting off of those flowers. Just a couple of places, add that little touch of pink in there. So now all we got left to do is our shadow, and this thing is coming along beautifully. So for our shadow, we're going to mix a little bit of that gray value. So it's white and the black. And I probably should get some fresh black out, but you know. So I'm going to create this a little bit darker. We're going to go underneath this first and create a little bit of a shadow. So right along the glass. Come out a little bit over here. Make sure we're keeping that glass shape, and it'll be a little bit farther over here. Kind of smooth it out. Just creating a little shadow. Goodness gracious, I'm messing up my glass shape here. You don't want to do that. Keep your shape really nice on your glass. Got it all cattywampus over here. Oh, keep doing that. Another set of flowers that are pink. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna really have to come up with a different color, but I think they're fun. And I hope that you have enjoyed this one. I hope you're gonna paint it. I can't wait to see what you do with the glass and the rocks. I love how they look blurred out. So much fun. Thank you so much for painting with me, everybody. Give me a thumbs up, like, share, and comment. I appreciate every single one of you. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.